Hello everyone, in this video we will be looking at multiplication and division with fractions. Basically, each of these operations has two cases that we are going to be interested in. We will be looking first into multiplication and then into division. So first we have multiplication. Let's say I have a multiplication between two fractions. That's the first case. I'm multiplying two fractions. Let's say I'm multiplying 3/4 by 2/5. What I'm going to do to solve this multiplication is I'm going to multiply the numerators with the numerators and the denominators with the denominators. So that would be 3 times 2 over 4 times 5. 3 times 2 makes 6, and 4 times 5 makes 20. That's the first case that I have with multiplication of fractions. The second case, which is actually easier, is when I'm multiplying a fraction, so let's say 3/4 again, with a number. So let's say 3/4 times 6. What I do now is I multiply the number, so the 6, with the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So 4 is going to stay 4. And on the top, I'm going to multiply the numerator, 3, by 6, by the whole number. 3 by 6 is 18 over 4. And it doesn't matter which of these comes first. If this is, instead of this being 3/4 times 6, I could make this 6 times 3/4. So the number could be first. And we would still get the same result. It doesn't matter. The order of the number doesn't matter. Okay? So that's multiplication. That's what we do with multiplication. Then I have division with fractions. This can be a little more tricky. Again, I have two cases. One is when I'm dividing with a fraction. So the number dividing my divisor is a fraction. Let's say I'm doing fraction with fraction. So that would be 2/5, let's say, divided by 3/7, let's say. What I do here is I leave the first part of the division, so the 2/5, I leave my dividend the exact same as it is. I don't touch it, but I turn the division sign into a multiplication sign, and the fraction becomes upside down. So I put the denominator in the place of the numerator, so 7 comes on top, and the numerator in place of the denominator, so the 3 goes on the bottom. And then what I have is a case like this, where I'm multiplying two fractions. And I can do that, as shown before, by saying 2 times 7 makes 14. And on the bottom, 5 times 3 makes 15. What you have to keep in mind here is that it doesn't matter if the first part of the division is a fraction or not. So I could be saying, instead of 2/5 divided by 3/7, I could be saying 9 divided by 3/7. I would still do the exact same thing. I would leave the first part the same, so that would be just 9. And then I turn the division sign into multiplication, and the denominator becomes the numerator, and the numerator becomes the denominator. I basically flip the fraction, and then I'm here, basically, where I'm multiplying a whole number by a fraction. So that would be 9 times 7 makes 63. Sorry, 63 divided by 3. Okay? Keep that in mind. It's very useful. Let's move this a little bit further to the top so that we have some room. The second case, again, the first case was when the divisor was a fraction. The second case is when I'm dividing a fraction, so let's say 4/9 divided by a whole number. So in this case, we could say something like 5. 4/5 divided by 5. Before, what we were doing when we multiplied a fraction with a number, a whole number, we multiplied the numerator with the whole number. Now, because we're dividing, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the numerator alone, as we did with the denominator before, but we're going to multiply the denominator with the whole number. That would be 9 times 5. And that would be 4/45. So it's kind of opposite, as multiplication and division usually is. They're kind of the opposite. Here, when I multiplied a fraction with a whole number, I multiplied the numerator with the whole number. Here, because I'm dividing with a whole number, I multiply the denominator with the whole number. And, well, if this isn't, because before, in the first case, we mentioned what happens if the dividend is a whole number. Well, if this is a whole number, instead of 4/9, I have something like 20. Well, if I have 20 divided by 5, we've learned how to do that a long time ago, so that's not a case that involves fractions at all. And so that's basically multiplication and division with fractions. See you on Monday.